Rich Gmebsh, welcome to my house, my family's house. And over 5 years ago, during the last election, I went to hear different candidates through we have an organization for women here, English speakers of Polish Salon, called Mefgez. That do great. They do a lot of wonderful things for the people, for our community. And they had set up a night to hear different candidates. And I walked out that night and I heard a few candidates, and many of them are running again in this election. And I was struck by one. It was Amir. Oh, he didn't really hit me. I was very moved by what he had to say. I was inspired by his vision, his charisma, and his honesty. And then I heard him speak again in an event organized by Dalia Solution for the Democratic School, where there were, again, the different candidates, and I heard different points of views, and I had the same reaction. And so I was like, well, wow, this is kind of interesting that I'm inspired by a politician. And the things that he represents, and his honesty and his integrity, were really moving to me. So, not only that, I was also speaking to people he worked with Yael and with Yael, and those were also people who were collaborative and engaged in dialogue and really wanted to change our community for the better, saw the need for improvements in education, in the foundation of our facilities, in culture, in the citizens. And then one day, someone gave me a call, and asked me, wanted to convince me to vote for her candidate. It was someone that I knew. And I was like, well, actually, I think I'm voting for Amir Kוכבי. And she said, that kid? And I said, that kid I'm voting for that kid. I'm voting for that kid, absolutely. Because I think that kid has got his stuff together. And we were talking about it on the phone, and she was like, I don't understand, he's 33 years old. And I was like, yeah, but he's got what it takes to be mayor. And I think that kid is exactly the point, that experience is very important. But there's something about Amir's vision and his not only, it's like he needs to collaborate with people, and his availability, that's so impressive. The thing is, that kid that was 5 years ago, he's not such a kid anymore. But he still has that. He still has that, he's very inspiring, and I'm really happy that he's here to speak with us tonight in English. And he inspired me so much then that when my third daughter, I'm the mother of Eden, and I'm the mother of Ella, and I'm the mother of Sahar, and I'm the mother of Ben, and I'm the mother of Kayla. And I was driving around with my third child the night before the election, Sahar, and she was looking at these signs in town, and she was like, what are all these faces? What's going on? I said, well, these people are running for mayor, and would you like to see who I want to be mayor? And she's like, okay. So I drove her to Agnes. I was like, Amir, this is my daughter, and I'd like for you to meet her because I want her to know you. And he was like, wow, this was like really the night before the last election. And he greeted her with such, he's optimistic and amazing, and I know he can do wonders for this town, and I'm really glad that you're here to speak to us.
So basically, I don't need to say anything anymore, so I think we can call it a night and break out the beers and whiskey and whatever. It'll be more fun, that's for sure. Thank you for the introduction. That was, I don't remember hitting you, but if it worked so well last time, I'll be starting a punchline on the way out. My name is Amir Kוכבי. I'm not really a kid. I'm almost 40. I'm a father of 2. I'm married to Meital, who owns the Agnes. I just drink there from time to time. I'm father of Ophir, who's almost 4, and Rotem, who's almost 2. And I've lived in Hod HaSharon ever since we came back from Hong Kong when I was 15. And we moved to Hong Kong from Petah Tikva, but that part I like to hide. I'm sure you can all understand why. But half of Hod HaSharon is people from Petah Tikva, so I still feel at home. Tonight's going to be relatively like all other nights, so if there are people who were in town hall meetings in Hebrew, Jackie, I'm looking at you, that's your third. Then you can tell everyone if it's the same things I'm saying in Hebrew or if I'm trying to, say other things in English. But I'll basically just talk about how I got to this point that I'm running for mayor in the elections coming up October 30th. It's October 30th. It's right around the corner. Today someone who knows me really well said, but it's like half a year from now. And I'm like, no, dude, it's like 5 weeks away. It's like, get your act together, people. So I'll just talk about how I got into politics and what I did in the last 10 years. As a politician, as a city council member, and deputy mayor for a while. But then we'll talk a bit about Hod HaSharon today and what we can achieve in the upcoming years after we win this election. So, and the main part is, of course, questions from the crowd, because it's a very diverse crowd, so we'll bring up many subjects. So I think that'll be the more interesting part. So I got to Hod HaSharon from Hong Kong when I was 15, and I studied in Hadarim. I wasn't a very good pupil in Hadarim, but I was present. I was there. I edited the school newspaper, and I was in student council and all the things kids do when they want to get away from classes, but still have to be in school. And when I finished, I joined the army, 5 years in the Armored Corps as an officer in combat, in training. And when I left the army after 5 years, I still do reserve duty. Not in the Armored Corps anymore, but Pikud HaOref, search and rescue. And when I left the army and I came back to Hod HaSharon, that was maybe the first time I felt that Hod HaSharon doesn't really want me to come back. And I didn't really know why, but I decided I want to study something that will help me to be a civil servant. We just started, so you can join us. It's a he, it's a she.
Pizzi.
Ech? Pizzi? Okay. That was my name until the election started. It's the first election I'm gaining weight. I don't like the way it's going. Pizzi. I knew I wanted to be a civil servant, so I decided to go study it, the theory of it, and I moved to Beersheba, to Ben Gurion University, and we have an English speaker who was just made the president of Ben Gurion University, Dani Chamovich, member of Keilat Yonatan. So good for him. Maybe no one should tell him where my BA from Ben Gurion University is hung up. Sukan. Still hoping for a PhD sometime. So I moved to Beersheba to study politics, and after 3 years there, working with the army, I came back to Hod HaSharon. And that was when a group of friends, we were sitting around in a house in, to say it in English is even more funny, in Love Street. Thanks, Joe Morrison. And we were sitting around one night, a summer night, and we were hearing kids walking around on the road because there were no pavements there, and they were kicking about a beer can and talking about a vodka bottle they just bought, and another one that's waiting because one of the fathers is really cool and he's giving them a vodka bottle, and that they're going to go sit in the garden and drink it because Hod HaSharon is boring. And we were like, dude, that sounds familiar. we all know that talk too well. And we realized the only thing that changed, or the only two things that changed since we were kids in Hod HaSharon, were that there were suddenly many more buildings around, and there was a park to drink the vodka in, because when we were growing up, there wasn't a park. So we just sat on the rails outside Beit Galecham, Optica Alperin. Who's been in Hod HaSharon more than 15 years? Okay. Who's less than 5? Okay. So Beit Galecham, it's a mythological place where all the kids used to hang out. No, it's a bakery. There was one in Hod HaSharon. Now there are more bakeries than people. And we heard the conversation, and we realized only those two things changed, and we were asking ourselves why, and I just finished a BA in politics, and I was telling them it's because we're not taking part in the political game. And they're like, why? I voted for the Knesset. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's city council, it's totally different. And we started talking about what it means to be on city council, and where the money that we pay as citizens, where it goes. And that was the night when we decided, we're waiting for someone like on those 3 seats, because there are seats here, and I don't pick on people who sit in the front row. So. And so we started talking about politics and about allocating funds and how people make decisions about the things that happen in the city. And that was the night we decided to run for the first time for city council. That was 10 years ago. And we made up a group. We called it Ketzev, which is rhythm. It was an acronym for Kol Tzayir Ba'ir. Lately I've been told maybe I should change it. So I tell them it's only relative, but then I sound like my father again. But and we ran for city council, and I got elected for the first time 10 years ago, and that's when I realized how messed up this whole thing is, because there are basically almost no rules to becoming a city councilor. The only 2 things you have to overcome is, one, you have to be over 21, and the other thing is you have to get enough people to vote for you, and that's it, you're in. And the second thing that really surprised me when I became a city councilor was that nobody had the interest to teach me what I'm supposed to do. Okay? It's a volunteering position. Nobody works at being a city councilor, but it does take up as much time as you're willing to put into it, so it's like a second job that nobody pays you for. But it puts you in pivotal points of, as I said before, allocating funds, deciding future plans, building plans. Everything that happens in a city goes through city council somehow. So it's like a board of a company that has to also decide the way the company is going to function, and also take charge of the people working in the company and make sure that they're doing their job right. But you don't get paid for it, and you don't really have you don't really have any sanctions over the people working in the company. So it's a lot about being able to motivate people and move them from one point to the other. And it also pretty much depends on how you are with the mayor, because city council in a way is also like the Knesset. There's coalition, opposition, and people are on different sides of the table and trying to move or create agendas that suit the people who voted for them. And sometimes people forget that they're supposed to represent all the people of Hod HaSharon and not just the specific 1,000 people who actually voted for them. So I had to decide what are the things I'm going to focus on, because as I said, it's a volunteering job. Then I started working in Jerusalem in the Knesset as a parliamentary advisor to Roni Baron, who just finished then the position of Treasury Minister. And I worked with him for 4 years while being on City Council, and I was his Chief of Staff when he was Chairman of the State Controller Committee and Foreign Affairs and Security Committee. And all the time, I'm also a city councilor in Hod HaSharon. And the first things I had to learn quick is basically a new language. I was put on the board for planning, on the city board of planning, ועדת משנה לתכנון ובנייה. All city council members have a responsibility for planning, for the planning institute in the municipality, but there is a smaller committee that focuses on the day-to-day planning issues in Hod HaSharon. So I was put on that committee. Can anybody guess why?
You didn't know anything.
Good. Good one. Did everybody hear that? So I was just a kid when I was voted the first time. I was 28, not 23. And they thought I was really young. I was still finishing my BA in Be'er Sheva, and I was working in the Knesset in Jerusalem, and they thought I wouldn't have the time to learn the position, and I wouldn't even show up for the meetings, and I wouldn't care, and whatever, and so on and so on. And they were wrong. Okay. Because one thing I do feel strongly about is that when you take up a position that is, even if it's a volunteering position, then you have to take it seriously, and you have to learn what you're supposed to do, and you have to be there, and you have to be committed, because people actually went and put your name on a ballot, and they put all their hopes and dreams in you, and you have to fulfill or try to fulfill those dreams and hopes. So I studied planning for a few weeks before the first few meetings, and that was the first time I realized how influential the role of a city councilor is, because they brought back a plan, and I'm saying they brought it back because it was already voted on the term before that and was approved, but they brought back a plan for a whole new planning of a whole new neighborhood, and they tried to bring it in with a few changes. Like, for example, they asked to remove an underground parking lot and convert the building rights to more flats. So more citizens and less parking places. It's Hod HaSharon. It's Hod HaSharon Planning Committee. And they asked to remove some of the buildings were supposed to have commercial areas on the bottom, like buildings on a commercial floor. So they asked to remove that and give more building rights for more flats. And then the last thing that they tried to do was take out, because it was partially a city plan. The city was also the initiator of the plan, not just approving the plan. So the city actually tried to move some of its grounds outside of the plan and put them somewhere else. Why? I don't know, but what does it mean? That there is not enough public space left in that neighborhood. So I was like the kid from the commercial to Kupat Cholim Klalit, lama. And it took them four long meetings until they realized they're not going to get out of it, and they just decided to vote, and I'll do whatever I want. So I voted against it, and they went right on and voted for it. Can anybody guess where it is? 1200. 1200 in Magdiel, next to Sokolov. If you drive past there, you'll see buildings that were supposed to be 14 floors, and now there are 22 floors, 24 floors, and you'll see there's no parking and there's no commercial areas. and there are not enough kindergartens, not enough schools. They're missing 6 first grade classes for this new school year that just started. So these are decisions that were taken 10 years ago, and they're influencing the people who have moved into Hod HaSharon in the last few years. And they're influencing not only the people of 1200, it's influencing the whole area, Magdiel and the surrounding neighborhoods, because we're moving in more and more people and building less and less infrastructure. And infrastructure is not just the roads and not just the sewage, it's also schools, it's also public gardens, it's also commercial areas. And all through the 10 years in office as a city councilor, and the 1 year I was a deputy mayor, I realized the city is very much focused on this one agenda of building more and more houses, building more and more flats, and not really paying attention to the things that the people who will live in those places need later on. So about 3 or 4 weeks after I voted no, they moved me out of the committee. They voted to move me away from the committee and put someone else in.
Were you the only one that voted against it?
Yeah.
In the whole committee?
Who are the rest?
That was 10 years ago. I can probably remember some of them, but it doesn't really matter because people sometimes ask me, is it just corruption? What is it? And I say,
Oh, yeah.
עשית את זה בכוונה כדי שיהיה לך כרטיס לברוח, אה? So it doesn't have to be corruption, okay? We'll talk about what leads a city to create such an agenda for so long. And I'll just say Hod HaSharon has only had 2 mayors. That's it. The whole of Hod HaSharon, all the 65,000 people you now see walking around the streets, that's all the work of 2 mayors, Ezra Binyamini and Chai Adiv. The first one was 15 years. He made Hod HaSharon a city. And he was mayor for 15 years, and then he moved on to be, I don't even think it has a name in Hebrew, but a joint chairman of JNF. If you know what it is, it's
Jewish National Fund.
yeah, but it also deals with land and and building things all over Israel and other places in the world. And then he was followed by Chai Adiv, who's now just finished 15 years and has just become joint chair of JNF, which is also, you know. So basically you were voting this time for the next chairman of the JNF, or you're voting for someone who will want to be a mayor of the people and not of the buildings he's approving all around Hod HaSharon. But as I said, this power that lies within city council and the mayor is pretty much absolute. A mayor can be very much dedicated to the people, or he can be dedicated to other interests. And I think that when we drive around the city, we know which is which. But it doesn't have to be corruption, because also the state, for now, the past 5 years, the state has been pushing for building more and more flats. Moshe Kachlon, Treasury Minister, decided that building more apartments will actually lower the cost of living in Israel. So he's pushing municipalities to approve plans, and they cut the power we have as city councilors, and cut the power of everybody who's supposed to be in charge of us in the planning division, in the Ministry of Interior. But the role of the city, the role of the municipality, the role of the mayor is actually to balance the interests and say, okay, I understand the country wants so-and-so new apartments, but we need new methods of transportation to allow those people to drive or to travel in and out of the city. How many people here work outside of Hod HaSharon? Don't think the army counts. You know, okay, yeah, it's work, fine. Okay. Who works in Hod HaSharon? Okay. You work all over. It's not a mistake, it's a policy, okay? The fact that about 80% put their hands up when asked who works outside of Hod HaSharon, it's not a mistake. It's a bad policy that because the city was planning for more and more apartments, it didn't develop any industrial zones, any commercial zones, no new commercial zones in the last years, no industrial zones, and we're bringing in more people, but they have to get up every day at the same time, get into the car and drive to a different city. Just to compare, Ra'anana, Kfar Saba, between 40 to 60% work outside the city. In Hod HaSharon, it's between 80 and 90% who work outside the city. And this is something that the municipality is fully in charge of. I mean, this is planning for industrial zone is within the power of the mayor, within the power of the city council. And that's actually one of the first things I'm going to work on as a mayor, even though it's not something that the people will see instantly. But it has to be a long plan and has to start soon, because otherwise we'll be stuck here with 100,000 people and no places for them to work in. Because another thing that this leadership just did was try to approve a building plan for the year 2050. So Tochnit Mitar, it takes the whole city, and it says how we want the city to be in 20, 30, 40 years' time. And what this plan is actually doing, it's more than doubling the population of Hod HaSharon, and it's maintaining the same policy that was being pushed forward by the two last mayors. And they're doing this now when we know that this mayor is not competing again. So they're actually trying to catch the new mayor, whoever he or she will be. Hopefully it will be I, but they're trying to catch them with plans that will be already approved to make the city 2 times and even in longer term 3 times larger, and with the same problems: no industrial zones, no culture zones, no green zones, not enough public spaces left. So the first thing I'm going to do as a mayor, because now it's stuck in court because a group of citizens filed a lawsuit against it, and now it's stuck in court, and the court's decision will be after the elections. So as a mayor, I'm going to direct the municipality to ask to retract the plan so it can be replanned with the things we believe should be in a forward-looking plan such as this one. So for the first, I'll move a bit into planning. I finished the first term when I was diagnosed with cancer. I didn't speak about transparency, but we're videoing this. We're videoing this town hall like we're videoing all our town hall meetings, Hebrew, English, whatever language. My meetings from last term, from last elections, are still on the internet. You can see them and compare. I'm doing this because I think knowledge is power. When I was a first-term city councilor, I was fighting to open up city council meetings to the public because they were being held in places smaller than this, and there was no place for anybody else from the crowd, from citizens, to come in and watch. And as I said, knowledge is power, and to see how decisions are made and how money is allocated and for what purposes, I think that makes all the citizens a lot more aware to the power of city council. So that was a fight that I won pretty quick, also because it's the law, and also because the city council meeting room was burned down. It wasn't me. No, really, it wasn't. The room next door was the office of the attorney for municipal planning, for התובע המשפטי של ועדת התכנון והבנייה, הארכיון, the archive. So if you ever built something that wasn't legal, the file was there, and that was burned down, and it burned down the city council, the city council room. And I don't know if you know, but that archive tends to burn once in 3 years. I don't know why, something really, you know.
It's not digital.
I've been city councilor for 10 years. It's burned down 3 times. Nobody knows who did it, why. I was in a meeting yesterday, and somebody said, or 2 nights ago.
Wasn't it digitized?
I was just going to say, I was in a meeting 2 days ago, and somebody said, yeah, but today I work in another municipality. Today everything is on the cloud. And I said, dude, in Hod HaSharon, the only clouds are the ones that you see in the sky. Now they're trying to digitize it. It's no. And also, it's not a mistake, it's policy.
To let it burn once?
No. But not to digitize it and leave it in places that could burn. Yeah.
It's just a little fire.
Definitely. I mean, Hod HaSharon has been built very rapidly, transformed very rapidly from moshava to moatza to a city. And many people had many new plans built up, and many people have old houses with many different חריגות בנייה.
Building infringements.
Good one. Many building infringements. Yeah. There's a quicker Englishman here. So yeah, when I became deputy mayor about 5 years ago, I went to the education department, and did anybody enlist children to kindergarten about 6-7 years ago, or before? Does anybody remember what it was like?
Yep.
Want to tell the class? And I told them, why are we not doing enlisting on the internet? And the reply I got was, it's not going to catch on.
Well,
The internet. And this is 2014. And this brings me to the second problem, which I'm sure we all feel, because we all see the buildings and we all understand that somebody is pushing this agenda. We may not understand what it means for us as citizens, but we can see that this agenda is being pushed by someone, and that this whole entity that is the municipality is actually allowing this to happen. And this is maybe where it meets us as citizens, because a reply like this, it's not going to catch on. For me as deputy mayor, who was after 5 years in opposition, now I'm suddenly working with the people of the municipality and not just trying to find whatever they're doing wrong. And a reply like this tells me that these are people who have lost any hope in being able to do their job. Because this is a vast organization, really 1,300 people working to serve the people of Hod HaSharon, but they have no hope to do their job properly because nobody cares. Because nobody directed them to do all they can to find the best possible methods to make our lives as citizens simpler. Because when they tell me it's not going to catch on, then the next thing I do is call Zevik Bielski, who's a friend, and was then again mayor of Ra'anana, and I asked him, did you digitize enlisting to kindergartens? And he said, yes. And I said, when? And he said, 99, something. Why? And I don't know, they're saying it's not going to catch on. And he's like, what, the internet? And we can laugh all we want, but you know, it's really kind of sad. But I went on from there to get my phone connected to a schedule and email and whatever. These are things every organization does. And I was told that it can't be done in the municipality. And I said, why? And they said, ביטחון מידע. And I just finished a position just before I became deputy mayor. I finished a position as the chief of staff for the chairman of the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee of the Knesset. So I had the schedule and the emails of the head of the Mossad in my phone. So ביטחון מידע, and it sits on the exact same place, because nobody expects the people who do the job to go out and search for ways to make your life easier, and then they just find all sorts of excuses because they can't do their job properly, because nobody cares, because there's no workers development in Hod HaSharon municipality, and there's nobody who's giving them a good word when they do something good, and there's nobody who's giving them a backup when they mess up, or if they mess up because they tried to initiate something, to be creative, then nobody's going to give them any backup, because the only thing that matters in the Hod HaSharon municipality in the last few years is, or maybe the last few decades, is how many flats have we started building this year? And when these two things combine, then the services we get as citizens, whether we're young or older or in between, just bad services, and it shouldn't be this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is reorganize the way the municipality is working, because I know that all my other plans in infrastructure and culture and education, all of this depends on my ability to motivate the workers of Hod HaSharon municipality, and for that, we need to rearrange the way the municipality works, because our municipality has never been rearranged. And as I said, we started off as a moshava, became moatza, and there are many things that don't even sit with how Hod HaSharon looks tonight. Like, how many building inspectors do we have in Hod HaSharon? Does anybody know? Two. Tomorrow morning when you go to work, because you have to, because there's no work in Hod HaSharon, just look around how many cranes you see working, and just ask yourself, how can this be? There are so many buildings being built, so many new neighborhoods being put up, so many new houses being built all over the city, only 2 building inspectors for this whole city. And they are in charge not only of whatever building infringement you have, or whichever building you're building, they're in charge of everything. So when a city doesn't want any regulation, even tougher, when the city doesn't even want to hold up its own restrictions, that brings me maybe to the this punchline that Jackie, I think, translated as cronies. Huh? Jackie? Not Jackie? Go on, Jackie. Cronies?
Yeah.
Okay. Because if we're saying only 2 mayors built this city, or 2 mayors ruled this city in the last 30 years, then there are about 10 people who built this city. And when 2 people work for 30 years with about 10 people, then they become buddies. And when this municipality is changing time and time again, but the way the municipality works never changes, and it's the same 2 building inspectors throughout the last 20 years, then you know some of the rules and regulations are going to be left out. And who loses out? Us. Because because nobody checks if the infrastructure is built right before the building gets a housing permit. And nobody checks if there's enough schools and kindergartens built in the city before the housing permits gets. And that's how we get to a phone conversation one day, 7 in the morning, and this woman calls me up and said, I found your number on the municipal website. and you're the only one who answered, so I'm going to tell you this. We were enlisted into a kindergarten, and this is about 3 weeks before school starts. We're enlisted into a kindergarten, and I went to see where it is, and I'm standing in front of it, and it's not here. And I said, what do you mean it's not here? Because I've heard many weird stuff about השרון, but this is the first. And she said, I'm standing in the address, and it's not there. And I was in the car, so I said, okay, I'll come to see. Maybe you're missing out and it's somewhere else. And I got there, and by the time I get there, she realized there's supposed to be another kindergarten, and it's also not there. And she's right, 70 children enlisted into 2 kindergartens, Mor v'Kinamon, if you've heard the names, who weren't even built. And this is really when you understand that maybe the internet didn't catch on, but they don't even know how to email departments. Like the department that approved the building plan didn't send an email to education department to say, hey, we haven't built those kindergartens yet. Please don't enlist 70 kids into them. And that's what happens, and we found that out 3 or 4 weeks before school started. And there was a big fight about it, and they spread the kids all around Magdiel, and it was horrible. And they're still missing kindergartens in 1200 and other places in the city. And it's because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and it all has to do with those things. So just before we move on to questions, I'll just say that for me, the last 10 years were really to realize how much power we have as elected officials, to realize how much this position really counts if you want to make it count for the citizens. And we've started talking about transparency. We've opened city council meetings to people coming in, and we've opened them for live broadcast on the municipal internet site. Still, they try to pull some pranks from time to time, and they sometimes the camera is not working, and sometimes they put a big worker in front of the camera for 2 hours. He's just standing there, but basically you can log on into the municipal website and see an archive of all the city council meetings in the last term, even term and a half. And we've done also many things that, and I've started speaking in we've because then in the last election I said I was diagnosed with cancer, and I wrote a blog about it because I thought people who voted for me should know where I am and what I'm doing, and it's still online, and I'm fine. I made it. I did realize then that I should make a decision on what I want to do when I grow up, and I decided that influencing my surrounding. אפשר קפה גם? לא, זה בסדר. And I decided influencing my hometown and the place where I'd one day want to grow up my children in was more important for me than working in the Knesset. And we ran for re-election 5 years ago, and we were voted with 2 mandates, and with me was Yael Barzilai, who couldn't be here tonight. She was the youngest city councilor in Israel at the time. Well, she still is now. And we had 5 more years with dealing with transparency on city council and the way the municipality works. And I said working with the municipal workers and trying to change the way the education department works, and so on and so on. But the whole of the 10-year experience as a city councilor really made me understand how powerful the role of the mayor is, and how important it is for a mayor to have an agenda that focuses on the public, on the citizens. Because it is very easy to get carried away and to think you're building this city, you're building a new megalopolis, and you see all those high rises and all those buildings. I don't know if you've seen Eretz Nehederet, Eddie Koppel, the part where he drives around and serenades the cranes and saying, oh, we're building the city together, and it really happens to people. I mean, people really do sometimes mistake the power given to them by the people to be something they're entitled to. And I do believe that after 2 mayors who have only seen this agenda of building more and more flats, or of one day becoming joint chairman in the JNF, it's really time to put on a new agenda on the table. And this is what we're going to do starting October 31. I think we'll just open it up to questions now, and we'll speak into agenda as much as you guys want, but I'll just ask for a name, and I'll take a few questions, and then I'll answer them together, and if there'll be more, then we'll answer some more.
My name is Duran. I'm a member of the democratic community in the school in Ashron. We talked extensively about the building plans for Ashron and the issues that we have with them. And I want to raise the issue of education, which you just brushed on. First of all, I wanted to know your positions about the education in Ashron, and specifically in regards to the democratic school. It's been really hard to work with the municipality. As a member of the community, it appears as if the municipality is actually actively working against us. And it's currently not up to high school. We really wanted to expand. And I think the democratic school in Ashron is doing an amazing job. And I just want to know your position.
Okay. Take a few questions and then answer them.
Okay, you were saying that you want to change the plan.
Just the name first?
Ayala.
And
And by the way, I work with Jane, if you were saying they do lots more than building, but, and planting trees.
Well, they don't plant trees.
No, actually, they're joining me. All they plan to do. It's more it's Jane is right. I want to know, you were talking about the plan that you want to change that's being passed on right now is in the courts when you do become mayor. What is your vision? I haven't heard from you actually where you do see Ashron in this to come.
yeah?
Kevin is my name. Couple of questions for you, Amir. You mentioned briefly you were deputy mayor for about a year, and you left, or whatever. Could you just give us an understanding of why you joined the coalition, why you left the coalition, what the reason for that was? I've been to a couple of other meetings with other people. I've asked them similar questions. I'm going to ask you the same. 15 years as mayor, our two previous incumbents had each. What is your view on term limits, and where do you see, when you get elected, yourself being in terms of that? And you spoke about the municipality and the employees, the workers in the municipality. Okay, so we're sitting in a situation, I understand from what you're saying, that we have 1,300, 1,400 people who perhaps are not motivated, who perhaps are not competent. I don't want to say that, but it could be as well. And who seem to be it's a very nepotistic city. In everybody's family and their cousins and sisters and uncles and aunts all seem to work in the same organization.
Coincidence.
Absolutely. They set the fires, then they put them on. What is your position in terms of families working together in the municipalities? Because when you're mayor, both me and my wife want to get a job. Yeah. So what's your view on that? And how do you see the municipal workers' situation?
Okay.
I obviously am going to concentrate on the religious area. We live in a city which gives millions of shekels every year to Orthodox Judaism. through all kinds of different channels. I'll just take one example. There is money which is distributed every year to amutot, to charitable organizations, religious organizations. 50% of the money that is given through those channels automatically goes to koilalim. Koilalim are yeshivot for older people. Most of the people studying at those koilalim are bussed in from Petah Tikva. We get out of these millions of shekels, as a result of our application, 23,000 shekels. Kilat Yonatan, we get, thank you, 23,000 shekels a year. I asked one of the candidates, what do you think about this 50% going to the koilalim? And he said,
let me guess.
Why don't you establish a koilel? Now, I'm also concerned about the fact that for years Birkat was trying to establish a Beit Almin Ezochi, a place where people who didn't want an Orthodox burial would be able to be buried. It still isn't here in Hod Shalom. What is your view about the religious status quo here?
Okay.
jullie קשרו אותו. לא, בית עלמין, jullie קשרו אותו. We just now the תחום עתירה.
No, it was approved before. I'll talk about it. They just now put up the sign. It's going to be built in 2019.
Hi, Rebecca. I'm also, of course, interested in religious pluralism, but my question has to do with, I think that my feeling about Hod Sharon and just seeing the obstacles that we've had to overcome with the Reform congregation and the fact that I think it's a very divided city. Let's put it this way. I mean, we have 8 candidates running for mayor. I think that's a sign of something. And I'm just wondering, if you were to win, what could you do, or what would you do to help bring people together and to also to overcome all of the objections of sort of, the less reasonable people in the city? I mean, it's like, how can you actually get things done when you've got people on this side, people on that side that just don't agree? Well, but you have to get something done.
Sorry, what was the question?
How to get things done.
Like, he started off by saying that the very first thing he did was to vote against something, and he was overvoted, right? He lost the vote, and we got Elif Makai. So, as mayor, you're going to be facing situations like that every single day. And how are you going to overcome it? Like, how are you going to...
I'll answer it.
I've heard a few candidates speak, and everyone, not everyone, but let's say half of them, more relevant younger ones, are basically raising the same problems, the same issues, and giving all of us the same answers. So what makes you different?
Adam. I've been getting like Instagram posts and Facebook posts from like Ifat Kariv and the other guy that I forgot his name. You guys, and
It's working well for him.
Yeah, the guy who's Shalosh Yechidot something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mabar.
The guy, yeah. I haven't seen anything really from you. Like, how are you planning to win this thing if you don't see the younger side of the society doesn't
I see him all the time.
Like I don't think my friends have heard of you a lot.
Can you give Amir?
Whose fault is that then? If it's your friends.
No.
Okay.
I'm talking about like.
I know. I get the question.
Like
Okay.
you got it.
Yeah.
And how are you planning to win this thing?
Really? Okay.
What does Hod Sharon...
3 חוגי בית לא הייתה לה שאלה אחת. Okay. Hey, now we're in English? Okay.
What does השרון currently offer in terms of recreation for teenagers? I have a couple of them. And what are you planning to do differently? In terms of that aspect.
Yeah.
I happen to be one of the fortunate people that work in השרון, and 20%.
It's you.
I have, yeah.
You were just sold, no?
No.
So big. No, I
Anyway,
saw a big headline about
the situation in the industrial area is very
Appalling.
problematic, particularly regarding parking. I mean, it's crazy. You get to work. It only takes you 5 minutes to get to work, but it takes you 25 minutes to find a parking space. And getting in and out of the industrial area is so packed that it's better to go through the fields, even if you mess up your car, but it's better to go through the dirt fields so that you can actually get in and out of the industrial area in a reasonable amount of time. So the question is, you know, how do you foresee addressing some of those issues, not only making workplaces, but facilitating them for the people that do work there?
Okay.
Continuation to Lori's point, I'm one of the 80% that works internally. You mentioned a little bit about, traffic and requirements about getting out of here, but I want to hear more concrete plan how you're going to do that. Just the issue we have of getting out. I live in השרון מערב, and all the way from my house, all the way to כפר הירוק, it's everybody knows, so I'd love to hear concrete plans for that.
Can I ask, or do you want to answer these and then me, or no? There's a lot of questions.
You're hinting yours is longer than everyone else put together.
For sure.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll take that and then we'll start answering.
I just want to know your view about getting money, like to help השרון build things and things from the government. I know a lot of towns there's funding available that apparently השרon isn't really or hasn't taken advantage of. So I don't know the reason behind that, but some of my friends who live in other towns and who are involved said that there's money available that, for different governments or from abroad, sister cities, all of that. Like there are ways to get money that's not just Arnona and having to build more, whatever.
From JNF.
So a couple of things. The first question about education.
What's the name?
Oh, Yossi. The first question about education. The democratic school was mentioned. Basically the same question about the anthroposophic. You can't talk about democratic without talking about anthroposophic. That's not fair. But also, someone mentioned there are 8 candidates in this election. A lot of what I've heard so far from the candidates has been quite negative about the incumbent mayors and also a little bit about each other. And obviously there's a lot of mudslinging in politics. That's politics.
Really? In our politics?
So I wanted to ask you to try and be positive about one of the other candidates. And specifically my question would be, if you were not standing in this election, who would you be voting for?
I wanted to be a volleyball player once. I grew up in Hong Kong, and my dad one day said he had a very positive way to let me see which of my dreams are, could happen and which couldn't. So he took me to the World Championship in volleyball, and he said, "It's happening, let's go." And we went, and the first game was Holland versus Russia, and we're sitting really high up, and these players come on the field, and I'm like, okay, I see why I will never be a volleyball player. They're like looking at me in the eyes, they're like 2 meters high, and the whole point was like, you just raised up for a slam that even I can slam down. But okay, I'll answer that one as well. Was there anything else? Or? No, that's it. Okay. I'll start answering. Before I do start answering, I just want to say, like, to see if you've noticed that apart from the political questions, even though some of them also touch base on that, but most of the questions have to deal with the things I talked about in the beginning. So I could come into a town hall meeting and say what the campaigners want me to say and give the 5 points that everybody knows because that's what's in the polls and because that's what everybody talks about in each elections. But I decided to do it differently because I really think it's a matter of agenda. It's a matter of setting straight the way Hod HaSharon looks at its citizens, and that you don't get to do with 5 points given to you by campaigners, even if they speak about the things you're asking. So that's why I begin with describing the situation in Hod HaSharon, describing how I dealt with it, sometime more in depth, today a little bit shorter, but because I do believe that this election, with all 8 candidates, is really a chance. It's a chance to see what people talk about, what they believe in, what they think they can change, what they even want to change. Some people, even without telling you this, you'd understand that they're fine with the situation that is going on today, with the basics of it, with the cronies and the building and all of that, because you know these are some of the people running. But all these questions do have something to do with the way the city was planned or not planned for the last 30 years. And this is the main thing that we're going to have to change. So I'll start by talking about education and democratic, Tamar, education as a whole. I believe, I'll start with a story. Every summer I get a phone call from a distressed mom or dad who says, listen, we didn't get into the democratic school. I need your help in getting into the anthroposophic school. And everybody who knows those two schools know that it's 180 degrees. It's like it's not the same. So what does it say to me when a mother wants either the democratic or the anthroposophic? She doesn't care. She just wants her child to be in one of them. What does it say to me? That people don't trust the public education system, and it's even funnier or even more awkward today because both democratic and the anthroposophic are inside the public education system. But what it says to me is that people don't believe that the public education system is working for their children. They don't believe that the system sees their children. So when I talk about a municipality that sees its citizens, that services its citizens, it has to start in the kindergartens, in the school, in education. And we don't have an education department, we have a fire department. That's what I call them. Because they go around putting out fires all day long. They're missing out teachers here, they're missing budgets there, they don't know how to do this, they don't know how to do that. They're all day long, they're just driving around the city, putting out fires in the education system. And this all has to do with the fact that the city's agenda for the past 30 years had nothing to do with education. Because when we see a city with a very strong population, with a growing population, very diverse, but also very solid financial and otherwise. But we see that the only measurements, the only objectives being measured by the municipality is how many get their bagrut, what the school scored on the Meitzav, and how many joined the army and which unit. And every time, and you asked about why I left the coalition, this is one part, probably not the main, but one. Every time I try to argue with both the education department and the mayor about creating different measurements, they didn't even understand why. Because if we leave the kids at home now, Anybody still in school? Huh? Don't listen to this part. If we leave them home now, and they go to their bagrut in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, they'll still do fine. Really. They won't miss out anything if they don't go to school tomorrow. Because of you. Because of this population, because of the parents, because of the society, because of YouTube and Wikipedia and whatever. Because people have the ability to learn, and they're learning all the time from their surrounding, from the community, from their families. So a strong municipality that has the money, that has the resources, that has the vision, doesn't want an education department that is actually a fire department. You want something that has the initiative, that has the charisma, that wants to measure values, that wants to educate in values, that wants to give the children and the adults of the future the tools to deal with the real world. And if we're speaking, or before I speak about democratic and the anthroposophic, I'll say that this thing happens when the mayor doesn't sit in on every decision on which kid goes to which school. It happens when a mayor believes in the people who are leading the education department. He believes in his project makers. He gives them the guidelines to what kind of an education system he wants, but he lets them do their job, and he gives the principals and the teachers an autonomy to create schools the way they believe in, the way schools should be in 2018, 2019. And this isn't something that's happening only overseas. Because there was someone in the background, he said he was going early, and I don't see him now, so he's gone, Barak Barabi. He's a neighbor. And what he does in Tel Aviv is changing the education department of Tel Aviv, changing the whole way they look at education, and the way that now Tel Aviv sees the autonomy for principals. One elementary school can be completely different from another elementary school by the way they teach, by the way they function, by the way they talk to parents, by everything. It's all under the guidelines of the municipality, but they have the autonomy to work, and they have the autonomy to do the things they believe in. And this creates an education system that allows you as parents to send children to schools that have the values you believe in. And when we do this for all public service schools, then we won't get any more questions or we won't get any more requests of people saying, give me this or give me that, I just don't want to be in Igal Alon or whatever. Because people will understand that the municipality looks at all the schools the same and gives them the tools to work, and gives the principal and the teachers the tools to work and do what they're supposed to do. Specifically speaking about both democratic and anthroposophic, you're right. And it's politics, and it's bad politics. It's when people take their position and they think their position is theirs, they are entitled to it, it's theirs to do whatever they want with it. When I get a question, when I get an answer, an official reply, for why Tamar, the anthroposophic school, is not allowed to open 2 first grade classes this year, the official reply is, does anybody want to guess? You can never guess it.
It's not going to catch on.
No. Even better.
The building inspector didn't inspect the building yet.
Not enough students.
Listen to this. Because we didn't allow the Democratic to open 2 classes 2 years ago.
They didn't.
But that's the reply. And when an education department, when the person in charge of the education department says that, then...
What is the answer to the follow-up? They said they didn't allow the Democratic...
They didn't.
I know. Did you ask why?
Of course. I know the question. I know
What is the answer for the follow-up? Because nobody tells us.
No, that's obvious. Zema?
Yeah, I know it's obvious for me, but...
No,
no official reply.
but it's obvious. It's obvious for everyone. The way when education is not on your agenda, and when changes and people moving things around get too much attention, then if you're a weak politician, you think that threatens you somehow. And that's part of the reason why both the anthroposophic and undemocratic have been faced with so much problems from the municipality, because it's not on the agenda for anyone there, not the education board, not the mayor. It's not on their agenda. And all these organizations of parents and amutot orim, all this community starting to build up, you know, it's threatening to some politicians, and that's the way they battle with it. They just don't allow it to grow. So if you ask me, it's obvious that there needs to be a democratic high school. It's obvious there needs to be an anthroposophic high school. And it's obvious that they all have to be under the public education system and to get what they're supposed to get from the municipality, and not like now that they have to go to court to get what's theirs by law, and the municipality is still not giving it to them. For me, it's obvious, and I believe it fits into an education system that really sees the children, because there are children that cannot sit in class for 50 minutes and hear a teacher talk about, I don't know what they talk about today in schools, but I wasn't there, so I'm not really sure. And I have an MA. I turned out fine. When I was deputy mayor, I came to Tichon Adarim, the finishing of the school year, and they were giving out תעודות הצטיינות, and the mayor just spoke and finished his speech and just walked off, and they were stuck with no politician to give out the תעודות הצטיינות, and they called me on stage, and I was standing there, and my teacher from Kita Yud is standing next to me, and it's like floodlights and hundreds of parents, and she's dead serious giving out certificates to the children, and I'm like, Marcel, I won. And she said, what did you win? She's like all serious, and I'm already cracking up, and she said, what did you win? And I'm like, you know, the bet. And she said, which bet? And I said, you thought I'll never be on the stage with all these people getting excellent report cards and stuff.
She's a chemistry teacher, right?
Marcel Tanakh. מרסל אדירה, כן. אנחנו היינו השנה הראשונה שלה כמחנכת. So education has to be on the agenda. For me, it's one of the most important, it's one of the things that motivates me to get up in the morning and be a politician, because it's not fun being a politician for me. It's something I do, it's something I do well. I've been voted twice. I keep moving up. I know how to do it. I worked in politics. It's what I do because I do it because it can make change. Because the chair, it's a tool for me. It's not a destination. I don't need to be in a chair. I want to be in a chair because I know it has the ability to change the way we look at things, to change the way we allocate things. It has the ability to change lives, to really change lives for people. And education is the core issue. And I was speaking about Barak because I don't do things by myself. I like to work with people. I like to hear from people, and I like to make other people work. And Barak is one of the people working with us on planning how this education, this new education theme is going to look like. And also working with us is Sarit Sur, who is one of the founders of Bet Sefer Tamar. And we have Rina Shabtai, who was a chief of education department in Kfar Yona. So we have many people who are working with us on how to make education much better in Hod HaSharon. And somebody asked about money coming in, Sigal. One of the realizations that Hod HaSharon doesn't realize today, but we know, is that the education ministry is a good partner. Hod HaSharon is not working along with it. And when you encourage principals to take action, to take initiative, then you are able to bring in many things that are being tried out in other places. Like, for example, there was איך אומרים קול קורא באנגלית, נו? קק"ל.
קק"ל?
לא, איך אומרים קול קורא? A call to action. So there was a call to action for from the Ministry of Education of changing the way people sit in classrooms. Okay, it's called M21. They were giving out 80,000 shekels. Each municipality, each school who wins, the municipality is supposed to give 80,000 shekels also. And the only thing you had to do was to get an architect to draw the new the new sitting method, and to answer, to reply to this call to action. What an education department, a municipal education department does when I'm mayor is reach out to all the principals and say, here's your architect from the planning division. Tell him to draw whatever you want. File in the request. We'll put in the extra 80,000 shekels for each class you receive. In Hod HaSharon, they told no one. One principal found out about it and did it by herself, and she won. Okay, she got the 80,000 shekel prize. You know what they did to her?
They didn't give her money.
Demoted her.
They didn't give her the money because the money has to go through the municipality. So they didn't add the matching, and they tried to take away the money given by the education ministry. They called her in for a shimua. And about a month afterwards, she quit. And this is after 5 years they've been kicking her around because she has too much initiative. And I'm saying when I'm mayor, someone like this has to get like all the applause she can for doing something like that. When
Can you take the money that the school
no, they couldn't. No, they.
We're trying to put in an application for M21 as well, and our principal is just scared. She really wants it, but she's scared of doing it.
So I was talking about all these call to actions from the Ministry of Education, and someone told me, you know, it's like money on the floor. Why isn't the municipality taking it? And I said, you know, it's not money on the floor. It's our children's education on the floor. Because nobody's thinking about how we can make things so easily, so much better. There's so much money in Hod HaSharon. There's so much money in the Ministry of Education. Money is not an issue. It's almost not a problem. It's the only problem we face with money is because we didn't plan for enough classes, we didn't plan for enough kindergartens, and we're missing out on 2 elementary schools, we're missing out on the junior high, we're missing out on the high school. But even that can be arranged pretty easily. I try to bring in, there's a new type of school that's been opened just now for the first time as a pilot for the Ministry of Education, Batei Sefer Mechilim. Anybody hear about that? It's from Adi Altshuler, who created Knafayim Shel Krembo when she was 16, and now she works in Google. And one of her visions was a school that able and disabled children are all learning together. Huh? All schools? Oh, okay.
No,
Lord.
it's inclusive kind of.
Yeah.
They call it like an inclusive school with, as you said, with disabled and.
The idea is that in the future
All
there will
just-
כן, נכון. כן.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the vision of the current Minister of Education. You know, that in politics, when they change, the vision also changes.
The current minister is doing the exact opposite.
He's helping. Yeah, he's doing a lot of things that are on the other side of the spectrum, but he's the one that promoted this plan, and the 4 schools that.
They tried to do it many years ago.
Yeah, it's and we try to bring this school to Hod HaSharon because the Ministry of Education also finances building this school because they want to start promoting it. And Hod HaSharon never gave a reply. And we know that they they knew about this because I spoke to the mayor and Adi Altshuler spoke to the mayor and from the Ministry of Education, because it was a call to action for other cities, but Hod HaSharon, because of Adi, and we knew that if we'd apply, we'd get it. But we never applied. We were one of the only cities in Israel that didn't apply to get this school.
You said you spoke with the mayor. Did he speak back?
Yes, yes. We should. Somebody should say it to the education department. Yeah, we should. We should get it. We never got it. We never asked for it. And כן, זה נכון. Sometimes he gets talking, yeah, but I don't want any mudslinging. Somebody asked for something good about Hod HaSharon politicians? Huh? Good word about Chai Adiv? He's leaving? He's leaving. Even that lake is an example of how you do something, and because you're not doing it for the right reasons, it doesn't come out well. I mean, this is a complete it could be such a great place for educational purposes and ecology, and but even that wasn't planned properly, and we put a lot of money into it as a municipality, somewhere between 60 to 100 million. I'm saying between because I won't know the figures until I'm mayor because they're hiding them. But from what I found out so far, it's at least 60 million. But okay, fine, that's a prerogative of a mayor. You want to build a lake, build a lake. But I mean, even when you do that, you have to make a plan for the future. You have to know how the thing is going to work for your citizens. And it wasn't done with that lake because there's nothing there now. I mean, you go, it's nice to walk around, but then, okay, the experience is over, and what? There are no education plans. There's not enough sports facilities within the area of the lake or on the way to the lake. There's no commercial area except for the traveling Nissim. Yeah. The eternal Nissim. So
yeah, but he survived.
Did you ever see him cut an egg with an... Okay, never mind. So I mean, even this is something that when you do as a mayor, and you have the prerogative to do it as a mayor, and I have plans for other things with that kind of stature. I'll talk about culture and I'll say what my vision for that is. But even that you have to do with a plan that looks forward. I can tell you that even today, the municipality of Hod HaSharon doesn't know how much it's going to cost them every year. We don't know how much it's going to cost every year to keep this place going. We know it's going to be millions, but we don't know how many millions. The gardening, the water, whatever. Okay.
I wanted to say something about the education. I think the problem with the education in Hod HaSharon is the adults. I don't think you know what the problem is. And I think the only way you will know what the problem is by asking us.
She just called me old, huh?
And no one is asking us, because I don't think the problem is giving educators room to grow and to achieve what they want in education. It's getting educators. Because I studied in Muslim zone. No, sorry. I studied in Muslim zone, and I had a terrible time in Muslim zone. Neto because the educators, my educators, weren't educating anybody, and there were none of them. So I think that the biggest problem is taking each and every one of them and sitting them down and explaining to them that they're molding children and they can't do it the way they're doing it, and not only give them the tools, but show them that if they're not doing their jobs, they have to have consequences, and there needs to be a better pikuach on what's happening to kids in their high school, because kids are not finishing high school neto because הורידו אותם כיתה, כי הם לא באו מספיק לבית ספר, כי הם סובלים בבית ספר, כי המורה שלהם מתעלל בהם, או שלא יודעת, שילדה עם ציונים 100 במתמטיקה לא מקבלת 100 במתמטיקה, כי השקידה שלה לא בסדר. אני חושבת שזה מה שצריך להסתכל עליו, על הדברים הקטנים, ולא על התמונה הגדולה.
אני לא חושב שזה קטן, אני חושב שזה... It's completely within what I was trying to say. Even that, there's a whole leading in teachers program that was created by people from the Democratic community, and it takes out teachers from schools, teachers in the first third of their term as teachers, and takes them out and gives them a plan of 5 years of educating them on how to educate and giving them tools and giving them more salary, and it helps them within the teacher's room to grow in stature and be more prominent, and it helps them in front of the children. And this is a national program. And I asked an official question, how many teachers from Hod HaSharon are in this program? Because all you need to do is for the headmaster to say, these teachers are the one I want to invest in, because it's a 5-year program. And they add to their salary, and really, it's a good program. How many teachers from Hod HaSharon in the program? You'll never get the answer.
0.
No, 0 I can understand, 2 I can understand.
What's the program?
Between 0 to 4.
That was the answer.
Roughly translating into we have no idea what you're talking about, but we'll just throw a number. And that's how the current education system looks at education. It's not educating. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's why I was saying if you'll stay at home, you'll still get your bagrut, because that's you, and that's your parents, and that's the society you live in. But it's not what the schools can do for you. Schools need to do much more for the children in it. The children in it can and need to be more active, more leading roles, more participating roles, not just coming into school and sitting there and getting schooled for 6 hours or 7 hours and being told about history. This whole thing needs to change, and it can change. And it starts with giving educators who have a vision the tools to push that vision and to create it. And of course, some of the people will move out, and some of the people won't fit into this new education system, and it's fine. I mean, not all schools will be the same, and not all teachers will be the same, but this is the thing that will finally start moving around the education system and make it more relevant to 2019. Because right now it's not really relevant. I mean, it's probably the only thing that hasn't changed at all in the last 100 years in Israel. But I think that's...
I think when your phone knows more than the teacher, everything needs to change. When the person can just look up the information that the teacher's giving them on their fingertips, it's not about giving them information anymore, it's about...
If we look at why schools started, I don't think it was because they wanted people to know more. It was because, we wanted people to be more obedient, and we wanted them to be better workers in the factory, and because we wanted them to... yeah, exactly. That's what I think it's the only thing that hasn't changed in the last 100 or 200 years in humanity. And it's changing right now all over the world. It's even changing in Israel. It's changing in Jerusalem. It's changing in Tel Aviv. Even in Atlit, they have a new school that thinks of education completely different, because people understand that they have the ability to make education something that actually gives proper tools to the real world. And we can definitely do it here, because as I said before, it's a rich city, and the people have, the city has the resources, the education ministry has the resources. We need to be able to bring in the things and make use of them to create better education system. I spoke about building the planning issues, and I'll just say this. As a mayor, the first thing we're going to do is ask to retract the 2050 planning, the 2050 plan, because it needs to be changed. We need to cut down the number of flats being built in it. Right now, it speaks of between 130 to 150,000 people in Hod HaSharon by the year 2030. So in 12 years from now, more than double than what we have now, or just about double what we have now, and this needs to change. We need to slow down, even though the state is pushing us to build more, and even though there are still many lands to be developed in Hod HaSharon, the pace needs to be much slower. It doesn't have to be in the next 10 or 20 years. When people push me for a number, I say we don't need to pass. By the time I finish being mayor, and also that was a question, I don't intend to. Ron Huldai just said he will get to his funeral from the mayor's office. Okay. As I said before, the chair is a tool for me. It's not a destination. So I think 10 years, which is 2 terms, is more than fine for any mayor, especially if he's a good mayor. Also, if he's a bad mayor. So all the mediocre ones who want 3 terms, 2 is more than enough. And I believe that the new plan should speak of no more than 100,000 people within the next 20 years. And that can be done also by changing the 2050 plan, but also by making sure the regulation we have works. Because like you said, pikuach on batei sefer, also on planning. When we don't use the regulations we have, and I spoke about before, when people build whatever they want and nobody's checking what they're doing and how the infrastructure is being built and if it's all ready, and if we're bringing in, and sometimes the city gives itself a discount on what it needs to develop. That's how we get to a 2,500 flat neighborhood that doesn't have enough kindergartens and schools. So the city needs to do its part, and this will slow down building anyway. But we also need to make new regulations, because the regulations we have now are not bad, but they're not enough. And they don't speak about how we improve infrastructure in neighborhoods that are already existing, that are older, that need to be revamped, because all this population being added around them influences them as well.
What I don't understand, you go through Renana, you go through Farsaba, they have not built these enormous tower blocks. They've built 8 floors, maybe 8 floors, and that's it.
I'm going to say something about this, because this is an issue that bothers me. I grew up in Hong Kong, okay? Buildings are 60, 70, 80 floors. It's just funny, we lived there for 5 years, we moved 3 buildings, we've never lived above 2nd floor. Don't know why, but all the buildings are really high up, and in some places it works, and in some places you need it, but there's a whole new talk in planning in Israel about these buildings that we see in 1200, that they're going to be dysfunctional in a few years' time. So slums will be maybe too of a harsh word, and that may take some more time, but the building is going to be dysfunctional because they're not built right, because they're built, to maximize the profit for the ones who are building them, and not with a view of how it's going to be serving the people who live there in 10, 15, 20 years. And so we are looking at the ability of the municipality to restrict now the level of or the number of floors after the current municipality already allowed the breach of 2024. Now the 2050 plan is allowing 30 floors on Ramatayim, which is also crazy.
It's so ugly. There's no green, there's no parks.
It's actually more green to build high up. It depends what you do with the distances between the buildings, how much you reserve for green lungs between the residential areas. And this is something that isn't happening in the plan, in the 2050 plan. And this is the things we want to change. So we want to retract it and limit the number of apartments being built. We want to revamp the industrial zone, because Neve Ne'eman is horrible, but it's horrible for a reason. It's also policy, it's not a mistake. They want to shut it down. They want to make it smaller. They want to confine it and build around it?
Buildings.
Apartments. And this is, of course, it's a good question. Ask it.
Like, I just don't understand. You would think that the town would make more money.
A lot more money.
So what's the town I grew up with?
A lot more money. Because Arnona that you pay for, that citizens pay for, doesn't even begin to cover up what the city needs to provide you with. For a good functioning city, Arnona provides about 30% of what the city needs to give back to you. And when we talk about residential or industrial areas, the taxes are much higher, and the things that the municipality needs to give them cost much less. Why?
They're not there.
No, like, how is it? What's the,
No, because the
what do they get out of it?
Because the individuals are
Profit.
Two.
It's all cronies.
But they say they should get more from commercial.
There are two possible answers for that, and I said one, the municipality doesn't do its job in taking care of the citizens' interest, and by allowing more and more citizens to come in, we're actually hurting the ones that are living there. And the other one is this. Okay, it doesn't have to be corruption, but when for 30 years it's the same 2 mayors, the same 10 people building and pushing around land, and the same 2 building inspectors, then what can we expect? This is, I mean, if I start talking to you about the things that I see as a city councilor, then we won't leave here tonight. I'll just say this. The industrial zone, the government had to stop a plan for building residential areas between Jabotinsky, Canyon Margalit, and the lake. The municipality tried to change the Yeud Karka from agricultural and from commercial and industrial to residential. And המשנה ליועץ המשפטי של הממשלה, the government, stopped the plan for 20 years because it said something looks wrong. We need a whole new set of politicians to look at this plan in the future and see what can be done with it. But these things happen all the time. Hod HaSharon sells out or sold out public ground to business people who then built buildings on it. Right now, where I plan to put my cultural heart, or like I like to call it, on the land next to Derech HaMatayim, the strawberry fields of Kfar Malal. So it's not only Kfar Malal, it's also Hod HaSharon. There's a lot of public land there. And it's now in court also because the people of Kfar Malal who have initiated a plan to build there realized that their biggest public partner, which is the Hod HaSharon municipality, is trying to do what? Make more profit than them by changing the land rights from public to residential. And I mean, if you all think about where I'm talking, this is right in the intersection between Magdiel and Ramatayim. This is the heart of the city. This is the exact place where you want to put a cultural center. That's where you want to put an ability, where you want to put youth centers, where you want to put coffee shops, restaurants, shops. And this,
Where are you talking about? Where's strawberry fields?
from Bet Sefer Tamar all the way to the land in front of Mosenzon. All this strip of land, that's all Kfar Malal, private and public, and Hod HaSharon. And this is part of what the city is doing now, and this is something that we need to change. Did you just put it?
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to ask one more question. What can you specify achievements that you personally have done in the last 5 years since you've been volunteering and all that stuff?
Okay. We've got a few more before that, but we'll get to that also. employees and nepotism in City Hall. I said the first thing we need to do is rearrange the way the municipality works. When I was deputy mayor, here's one achievement. It's the first time the municipality checked the problem of nepotism in Hod HaSharon municipality. It was the first time, and we did it twice within the year I was deputy mayor. Once with the politicians who had to specify who they have as family members who work in the municipality, but also one time with the workers who had to specify not only the politicians they're attached to, but which other workers they are attached to. And yes, it is a problem in Hod HaSharon. And who asked about it? It's because you didn't say her name. No.
I did so.
Yeah. There are rules about it now. There are rules and regulation from the Ministry of Interior, and Hod HaSharon is not living up to those rules and regulation. And they say exactly this. You cannot, above a certain position, you cannot have two family members acting at the same position, and you have to give them the choice which one stays and which one goes. It's that easy. And this is where the Histadrut doesn't come in to help, because this is new regulation from the Ministry of Interior, and the city of Hod HaSharon isn't living up to it. It's not, well, maybe for you too, but no. But this can change, and also the Ministry of Interior knows when there's a new mayor, and especially after 15 years, and they know they have to help revamp the municipality, and they have תוכניות פרישה for some of the workers, and they allow you to move some of the other workers. But I don't believe in coming in and firing everybody. I know there are politicians who say that. I think there are many good workers in Hod HaSharon. I think there are many people who can be good workers. I know they were not given the tools. They were not being developed. Most of the workers work around minimum wage, so it's not like there are many people out there waiting to come in and replace them who have CEO status and are now just waiting to be a sayat beganei eladim. Doesn't happen that way, but there's a lot of possibility for the municipality once it really wants to rearrange the way it works. And maybe that's one of the ways. Somebody asked what differs me from others. Machi? No? Oh, Dalia. I saw your face. And that's maybe one of them. I grew up in Hong Kong, in Hod HaSharon, but I'm not connected to any of the families. Not in politics and not any otherwise. Not the families of those who do the infrastructure, and not the families who build the buildings. So I'm here for the citizens, and I can say that each and every time I had to choose who I serve in city council, I chose the people, and not those people. I chose the citizens. And Kevin, you asked about why I became a deputy and how I left. When we won 2 mandates, we realized we have a chance to make a difference. We have a chance to try and change the way things work in Hod HaSharon. And I was voted by the city council as deputy mayor, and I took charge of informal education, and I still dealt with planning, and I still dealt with transparency. You asked about achievements. I stopped for the first time funding for Orthodox schools bus rides, 10 million shekels a year for unauthorized bus rides for children studying in Ra'anana instead of Kfar Saba, because the municipality didn't build them schools here, but as a way for politicians to bribe families, they arranged them with bus tickets, and that was the first time we stopped. We did the nepotism act of Hod HaSharon, the city, the Beit Almin, which the civilian cemetery, which you credited Berkat, who started the fight for this. But as deputy mayor, it was the first time the Hod HaSharon municipality said we want this. I was in court, the same court I was with you. I was I was there also representing the people of Hod HaSharon, demanding we have a civilian cemetery. And it was the first time, and in that one I even spoke, because it was the first time the municipality said, yes, we want a civilian cemetery. And the ground allocation to Keilat Yonatan, which is the first time Hod HaSharon allocates ground to a non-Orthodox Jewish community in Hod HaSharon. We're still working on it, but it was the first time it was allocated. So that's also an achievement. And there are many other achievements on a day-to-day basis. The first time Hod HaSharon schools started teaching, elementary schools, started teaching, giving tools for the real life for children after school hours, realizing violence and all this haramot by WhatsApp, all these cyberbullying. Now we're, Hod HaSharon for the first time took charge of it, and we now have plans in some of the elementary schools. That's something my partner Yael Barzilai did as the head of the Committee for the Protection of Children, which is a municipal committee that also works in the Knesset.
Sorry, Amir, why did you leave?
Why did I leave? Why not?
One word.
For one whole year, you try to balance the things you believe in and the things you're asked to do. And after a year minus 7 days, both I and the mayor realized it's not going to work. He said, you keep grinding on l'chfor, transparency and minal takin, but you're a deputy mayor. And I said, yeah, and that's my job to do this. And he said, okay, no. And I said, fine. And he sent me a letter that that takes away, samchoyot, my powers. Yeah, it sounds like takes away my authorities, which is something I didn't say before. Deputy mayor is almost like a city councilor. Not much authority, not much practice, not much education about your job, but with one difference, you get paid for it. It means you actually work doing what you do. And so it was very uncomfortable for him because I kept on. I didn't join this tarbut mekoravim. I didn't let go of the things I believe in, minhal takin, shkifut. I kept working on it, and that annoyed him because I was sitting in an office and I was getting paid to do this. And when he sent me this letter or taking away my authorities, we had to decide if we're still staying in there because we can still maybe try and change things around, or maybe we're saying, okay, we've tried this and that's it, we're back into the opposition. And we realized that if we stay after I get this letter taking away my authorities, and if I get them back, then I need to change to be more like he wants me to. And we decided we don't want to do this. And I quit and we moved back to the opposition. I'll be talking about Keilat Yonatan and say that in my first term as city councilor, I found out the city of Hod HaSharon is giving away millions to organizations, or Orthodox organizations, that are working in Bnei Brak. And the first thing I did was call Birkat and ask her if she knows this, and she said yes. Birkat was a city councilor before me for Shinui, and I asked her why is it going on? And she said, it's one of the battles that we haven't won yet. And I actually went to some of those places to see if there are any people from Hod HaSharon studying there, because I believe I represent all citizens of Hod HaSharon, even those who don't vote for me. And I went there and I asked to see the lists of the people learning in those places, and none of them were from Hod HaSharon. None. And they were getting millions. Why were they getting millions? Eli Shai, Minister of Interior, and Shas were not represented in city council at the time, but the mayor always needs the Minister of Interior. And when the mayor forgets that Hod HaSharon is a very strong, liberal, pluralistic city, and he feels the only way he has to get along with the Minister of Interior is to give money to organizations he likes, then that's what happens. And we put away millions each year to those organizations. And somebody asked about the powers, the power of how to move things. I was one on city council, just one, and I knew that if I'd bring it up for a vote, I'd lose, because if it's happening, that means the mayor wants it to happen, and he has a big coalition, and even the opposition at that time, some of them were more related to the Orthodox community here, which isn't very large, but I knew that if I learned how to change the little things, maybe I'll find a way to make it better. And there's criteria to money the municipality gives away to organization. What Mickey was talking about, getting 20,000 something shekels this year, it goes along with criteria. And I realized the criteria for Orthodox organizations had nothing to do with the criteria other organizations need to do, need to have to get the money. Like, for example, you need a letter of, no, even before that, you need as an עמותה, אישור מינהל תקין. A letter saying, a letter signed by a lawyer and an accountant saying everything is fine with the finances. רשם עמותות, נכון. Orthodox organizations didn't need to hand that in. Other organizations need to show that the money they're getting from the municipality doesn't exceed 50% of their overall budget. Why? Because then it becomes a municipal organization. Orthodox organizations didn't need to show it, and you had Orthodox organizations in Bnei Brak, not even Hod HaSharon, that 90% of their budget was from Hod HaSharon. So what I did was change the criteria with the office of the Yoetz Mishpati, the council, the legal council of the municipality. And when they brought it back to city council, I was hoping that nobody read the memo. And nobody read the memo. And they just voted on all the changes. This was the one city council meeting I said nothing in. I just wanted the vote to come up already and for everybody to vote, and that's what happened. And that changed the criteria, and that's how I stopped funding for organizations who are not from Hod HaSharon. And today, the criteria includes not only they have to be in Hod HaSharon, but people need to be in Hod HaSharon. That's why they're busing in people from Petach Tikva. But the base of it needs to be here, and it needs to serve the people here. But Hod HaSharon is a secular city with a not so large or קהילה מסורתית, an even smaller Orthodox community, and it doesn't fulfill or it's not working now to fulfill the needs of the secular community in Hod HaSharon. Another achievement, חוק המרכולים, which Aryeh Deri tried to pass in order that secular municipalities will close businesses on Saturdays. Hod HaSharon municipality didn't want to vote on an amendment for the law. And Bagatz said that if we do not change the municipal law by stating that we are allowing, not saying we will not regulate closing, but by saying specifically that we allow businesses to open on Saturday, a municipality that doesn't do that will not be able to allow places to open on Saturdays. And Hod HaSharon municipality didn't want to make the amendment. The city councilors, they all went, oh, it's not that important. We have a status quo. We can do this, we can do that. But we insisted on creating this amendment to the law, and we pushed it, and we did a lot of politics around it so the people understand, so that the people around city council table remember that the population of Hod HaSharon is first and foremost secular, And if that's what they wish, then that's what should be done. And we did make the amendment, and now the Minister of Interior, who is now Aryeh Deri, not Eli Shai, but same but different, he hasn't approved it yet. He hasn't approved the bill yet. But the fact that we made this amendment, a positive amendment that states what can be open, means that when we go to Bagatz, then Bagatz will allow it. Because that's exactly what he told Tel Aviv. That's what Bagatz told Tel Aviv municipality. You can no longer pretend, you can no longer say that businesses are open when your law states they shouldn't be, and you don't regulate it. If you want them to be open, they have to be open. It has to be so in the law. So that's what we did, and that's what we're planning to do when Aryeh Deri says we can't open on Saturdays.
Are you going to change the reality of dividing the תקציבי תמיכות to the Orthodox and between the Orthodox and the liberal?
All of the funding for amutot and organizations in Hod HaSharon needs to be reorganized because we're giving out too little. We're giving out about between 3 to 4 million. We can be giving out double, but also by the way I said before, by changing the criteria and making it transparent. So
Not only by changing the criteria, you have to change a very basic element in the attitude of giving money. All the Orthodox get money from there is a מחלקת רוני, there is מועצה דתית. All the rabbis, the Orthodox rabbis get.
Okay. There cannot be double funding for those organizations, and today there is double funding, so that will stop. There will not be double funding. The criteria will change in a manner that will encourage pluralism and not לא, זה לא נגד יהדות אורתודוקסית, זה נגד עמותות שמנצלות את החוק או את הקריטריונים ואת הפוליטיקאים שמאפשרים להם את הקריטריונים האלה כדי להשיג יותר כסף. ברגע שמשתנה סדר העדיפויות ומשתנים הקריטריונים האלה, גם זה ישתנה, זה לא, בסופו של דבר, רגע, נו.
הם לא אלה שמאפשרים את
לא, מי שמאפשר את זה הפוליטיקאים שקובעים אותם, ובסופו של דבר יש הנהלת עיר, יש ראש עיר ויש קואליציה, אבל בואו רגע, אני רוצה רגע להתקדם כדי שנוכל רגע לסיים, אז בואו, לילה טוב. כן. ננסה עכשיו מה עוד היה פה. נדבר רגע על תחבורה ציבורית, public transportation?
Getting out.
Transportation. I say public because I think that's one of the main issues that the municipality hasn't planned and we have a plan for. I said I work with people who work in these industries, if it's education, if it's transportation, if it's planning. One of them is Yehuda Hollander. They're all from Hod HaSharon. They all live here. They all know the problems. One of them is Yehuda Hollander, who worked for the Ministry of Interior. And one of the things that, if I'll say basic, in short sentences, what we want to do is, I said, we're going to revamp the industrial zones and build new ones next to Highway 531 and Highway 4. We're going to create a public transportation system that is reliant, that can be trusted, and that serves all neighborhoods and not just the main roads within the neighborhoods. And we're going to do this by creating a public transportation, not company, but one of the municipal companies will run it. And then we do not need the public, we don't need the Ministry of Transportation to be involved in it. It's a municipal affair. And with that we can change the times, the stations, the intensity or the frequency of the buses or shuttles or whatever we decide after we check how many people need it in each neighborhood. And for the industrial zone, we can, with that, promote a shuttle from the train in Skula with the offices in Neve Ne'eman, so to encourage people coming in not to use their cars, but use public transportation that will go on and on. And we do talk about public transportation on Friday and Saturday, because when you do it as a public, as a private sort of company within the municipality, you can also do that. And apart for that, and apart for all the exits that are already planned, which I personally don't think that's the game changer, but it will happen because the country wants it to happen. But the game changers are the industrial zones, is the public transportation, and is, for example, the light railway that was supposed to pass through Hod HaSharon, the yellow line. And even though the rail lines were on Hod HaSharon, guess what wasn't in Hod HaSharon? A station. Hod HaSharon municipality, even in the days when there was supposed to be not just the railway, even the depot, the main functioning, the musach, the main depot for the yellow line was supposed to be on Hod HaSharon territory. Hod HaSharon municipality didn't even ask for a station within Hod HaSharon. And this has to change. And this is one of the things a municipality can demand from the government when the government wants you to build more and more. Because this is really a game changer. If we have a light rail that takes 20 minutes from Hod HaSharon to Tel Aviv, that helps the people of Hod HaSharon a lot more than the 3 train stations that we have today. No. Because Hod HaSharon never asked for it. It was supposed to start. Right now they sort of canceled it. They're not sure if it's going to happen or not. But when they planned it, they planned a station in Ra'anana, a station in Kfar Saba, and no station in Hod HaSharon, even though it was moving through Hod HaSharon. So these are the main things that will change the way we travel around the city, and add to that slowing down the building of more apartments and slowing down the rate of immigration into the city. So if there are more questions I haven't answered yet, or if you want to ask new ones, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you for having me. I'll just answer one more question, because I just realized I haven't answered it yet. I said before, this is a tool, it's not a destination. If I would have thought any of the other 7 candidates was looking at this the same way I look at it, maybe I wouldn't have run. Maybe I wouldn't have decided I want to be the mayor of Hod HaSharon. Because if people, if I had people there who I share values with, and I believe in their independence and ability to fulfill half of the things they promise, then maybe I would have, just let them go ahead and do it. But it's not the situation. That's why I'm running, because after 10 years as a city council members, I cannot say just vote for anyone or don't vote for anyone. I have to say, if I don't believe in any of the other 7, then I have 2 options, or to leave or to put myself for election. So I chose the second one, and I plan to win this. תודה ולילה טוב.
Yes, answer.
I have one question.